but there's also been some good news this week in Colombia, and I'm really pleased that Pablo Navarette is on the call to talk about the election in Colombia, where the left has actually won. Pablo, are you there?
I am, Crispin. Thanks for the invite. Yeah.
Thanks for waiting. Sorry, it was a bit late.
No problem.
Now, would you be able to give us a background to the election in Colombia, and also sort of the background to the new president?
Yeah. I mean, so Colombia has sort of historically been the US's enforcer in Latin America, kind of conservatory, reactionary bulwark that does its dirty work. And in recent times, it's had a series of right-wing governments who have oppressed, exploited its population. It's been the #1 place where trade unionists are killed, environmental leaders are killed. It's been called a genocidal democracy in the past, and I think that's very much the case. Anyone who tries to organize on the left, or even in progressive circles, that tries to alter the balance of power in favor of basic conditions for workers gets either assassinated or imprisoned. So it's been a really awful place for progressive politics in recent times. So in this context, the victory on Sunday by Gustavo Petro, a former urban guerrilla from the M19, who subsequently an economist, who attempted first in 2010 to become president, reached, I think, close to 10%. Then in 2018, he came second with 42%. And I think this year, he was finally able to reach the presidency, because Colombians have had they've reached a tipping point with the levels of violence inflicted upon them by their government. Only last year, there was a mass uprising in April by the population against the austerity measures that the government was inflicted, and the government killed at least 44 unarmed protesters. And this government is one that's propped up by the US, by the UK, and we can talk a bit more about that relationship. And I know Ben was talking about some of the reporting they've done. They've been one of the only media outlets, or probably the only media outlet, that has reported on this link by the British government and the Colombian sort of reactionary political class. So it's been a country where no one really thought the left would be able to make the gains that they have. And now Petro has managed to create quite a broad front, and even pick off elements of the, I guess, more centrist and even right-wing elements who just were fed up with or even from a pragmatic perspective, thought that it couldn't carry on in the way it was. And I think also crucial was his running mate, Francia Marquez, a 40-year-old former maid, single mother, environmental activist, quite an inspirational figure. And in a country such as Colombia, and in a lot of Latin America, countries where Spanish colonizers arrived, there is enormous amounts of racism, structural racism in society. You look at the media and you see the presenters are like all blonde, or, and you walk out in the streets, and the further you go into these countries, you realize that their populations are actually mixed race. The Afro-Colombian populations are never represented in the media, and they're excluded from the political system. So Francia Marquez was a galvanizing figure that really gave an environmental activist that really, alongside Pedro's, a career, but not a career politician, but an experienced politician. I think that winning ticket was able to finally defeat the forces of reaction in Colombia, because it wasn't a fair fight. The establishment in Colombia have never made it a fair fight for progressive politics in Colombia. But I think there was such a desire for change that Colombians were able to vote in Petro last Sunday. And I think it is massively hopeful for Colombia, for Latin America, and I think also for the UK. I mean, we're not exactly inundated with good news stories at the moment, especially in the UK. Although I think, as we were talking about, I think the RMT resistance and the way that they are kind of showing how austerity and how sort of reactionary politics can be resisted is refreshing, and hopefully shows us something might change in the UK. But Colombia is massively important, and I think this is part of a wave in Latin America, again, of a new pink tide. There was an initial pink tide in the noughties with Chavez, Correa, and there's a new one now with governments in Chile who are, left of center. Lula is likely to be elected in October, and I think this should give us all hope that progressive politics can win and can inspire, and hopefully will rebound into Europe.
So I unmuted myself in case I sneezed. I can't believe you were so concise in your whole story of Colombia. It was incredible. And all this pink tide. Is that something you think the Americans, do you think Biden will try to nip that in the bud, or what's the fear over in that area? I mean, is there going to be some kind of whatever kind of campaign to undermine all this stuff?
Sure. I mean, there always is. I mean, the US has called the Latin America its backyard historically. And even though the State Department came out very early on after Petro's victory was announced and congratulated him, I think that was just a sort of pragmatic move. The US government did not want Petro to win this election. They would have preferred even his challenger was this, they called him the Trump of Colombia. He was this maverick, self-styled maverick, but essentially he was a right-wing politician, a misogynist, a racist. The US would have preferred Hernandez to win. They're working out how to deal with Petro in the same way they're working out how to deal with Boric, and they're hoping that these more moderate, perhaps, politicians will be able to be co-opted or away from what they see as the dangerous lefties in Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. So there'll be this battle for this kind of more moderate, if you want, Latin American left by the US. But yeah, the US will always try and undermine, if not openly overthrow, governments which challenge its interests, economic interests, corporate interests in the region. They've done that historically. We know about Chile, we know Bolivia, and the UK as well. I mean, the UK is, again, something we don't talk about enough. As I said, the Morning Star is one of the only media outlets. We run an independent website called Alborada, where we try and put forward alternative narratives, because I think this is the crucial issue. In Colombia, in Chile, in Latin America, in the UK, the mainstream media plays an anti-democratic role. It distorts, it poisons, it smears people like Jeremy Corbyn, who people were talking about, and it makes the population at large hate union leaders such as Mick Lynch, or try and hate them, Jeremy Corbyn, because these are threats to the sort of right-wing establishment. So independent media here in the UK is essential. And I was just reading earlier a new interview actually with Jeremy Corbyn, who's got a big relationship with Latin America actually, by Declassified UK, a relatively new independent website, a fascinating interview about Corbyn's years in power, his relationship to how the security state tried to undermine him. I recommend it, although just try to go on the website, and it's curiously not available, so who knows what's going on there. But I recommend people look at that, and I think independent media is essential to sort of break that stranglehold that the media, who are bad faith actors, have on the narratives on what's going on in the UK and what's going on in Colombia.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I mean, in the 70s, the lack of information that we had in this country about, for example, Chile, if we had more social media to show what's happening, it might have made a difference. So I suppose that's key, isn't it? The information war on those new countries and in the pink tide, that could be key, crucial, couldn't it?
Absolutely. I think a point that Corbyn makes in the interview with Declassified is around how the Guardian treated him. And actually the Guardian, and I'd recommend a brilliant chapter by Alan MacLeod, a journalist, on the Guardian's reporting on the Latin American left. And it's a devastating critique of the Guardian's behavior. And to this, we would add Assange, Corbyn, the Latin American left. And I think with all this, it shows that the Guardian isn't a friend of progressive politics. So even the newspaper, which is supposed to be the most left of center mainstream, is basically become an enemy of progressive figures, of progressive causes. And so, yeah, we need to sort of think about how we can look for new forms of information and express solidarity with what's going on in Latin America. And I think crucially, solidarity can be expressed by challenging what our governments are doing to overthrow these democratic governments. I think that's probably the best thing I would say someone in the UK can do, is support independent media in the UK and challenge the British government's role in giving arms to, a right-wing reactionary government in Colombia that's killing hundreds of protesters and civil society leaders. I mean, just since the peace accords were signed in Colombia, I think it's 1,300 social leaders have been killed, and I think 320 former guerrilla fighters who gave up their arms have been killed. So this is a genocidal democracy, and our governments play a role in sort of facilitating those killings. So we need to sort of do what we can from here, I think. And lastly, just to say, there is an organization in the UK called Justice for Colombia, who have been campaigning and actually funded by the trade union movement, who have done an amazing job in exposing, I guess, and offering very concrete solidarity to Colombia throughout all these years. And I think, again, I would urge people to look at their website, look at their work and support what they're doing, because I think I know I've been to Colombia and I've heard how appreciative people are of the work that they've done here in the UK. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for that.
Well, that's really